I made this app that lets you paste in any amount of text right here, like 300 pages of text, and you can ask a question below here, and it will find the answer inside of that text that you pasted. So if we go here to Psychology Wikipedia, there are around 20,000 words here. I'm just gonna Control A to select everything, and I will go back and I will paste everything into this paste text here, and I will say embed to database. Now, since there are 20,000 words, it's gonna take maybe half a minute to a minute to embed all of this. The more thousands of words you have, a few more minutes it's gonna take to embed it. It took about 40 seconds to embed it into the database, and now I can ask any kind of question that can be found in this text. So for example, if I say, what are the big 5 personality dimensions, and when did they emerge as an important trait theory? Now this is basically, imagine if you are asking ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is going to actually also get the most relevant piece of text, for example, this piece of text, and then it's gonna answer based on this piece of text. So if I say here, for example, answer with a short answer, then this is just saying to GPT to answer with a short answer, and if I say get answer, we're gonna wait for a few seconds. The big 5 personality dimensions are openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, etc. This is the correct answer. But if I remove answer in short answer, if I now just ask the question, it's probably going to take a bit longer and it's going to compose a bit longer answer. So we're going to wait maybe 10 seconds, for example, because this is basically GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT. It's going to answer the way it answers with like an essay. And as you can see, it gave us a small essay as the answer of these 5 personality traits from the data that it collected from this Psychology Wikipedia. I will explain how this works soon. Before we start, if you are interested in learning the technical skill to build all of these AI product services, you can check the link below. I am making a course that's going to teach you all of the technical skills so you can make any kind of AI product yourself without waiting for YouTubers to make some step-by-step tutorial and hoping that they made the exact idea you have. Here you can see what you will learn in this course, and this is not only a course, but it's also a community with comments, questions, interactions below each lesson, where I will be interacting with you and helping you to learn AI online entrepreneurship. Check the link below. First, I will explain how to get all of these keys to be able to use this on my website. Then I will explain how I coded this and how the code behind this works. And at the end, I'm going to explain how to use different services like Firebase to turn this into like a startup where you have paying customers and paying users, and where you can add additional functionalities and turn this into a business. First thing you will do is click this link, OpenAI API key, and it's going to get you to this platform. You first need to create an account or log in, and then you have all of your API keys here. So we're going to create a new secret key. It doesn't matter what you call it, create a new secret key, and we will copy this and we will paste it here into your OpenAI API key field. Now you can use the free version of OpenAI API. The only problem there is that you will only have 3 requests per minute, so you will be able to either answer like 3 questions per minute. But if you want to upgrade, it's actually very cheap. It will cost you around $1 per 3,000 pages of embeddings, and it will cost you around $0.002 per 1,000 words of generated answer. So it's gonna cost you less than a cent for each answer, so it's actually not cheap, not expensive at all, but you have a very fast service with unlimited requests per minute. Or it's not gonna be faster than the free version, but it's not gonna have a limit of 3 requests per minute. And by the way, you can click this show instructions to hide or show instructions, but I will explain all of this in the video, so you don't need to read these if you don't want to. Then we will say Pinecone API key right here. So we will go here and then we will either log in or sign up. And after that, we will go to here to API keys, and we will copy this API key, and we will go back and paste it here. Then we will go to the same website, and you see this environment. We're gonna copy this environment, and we will paste it here. Then we will go to Pinecone and we're gonna click indexes, and then we're gonna create a new index. So the name, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna call it YouTube tutorial, it doesn't matter. And then dimensions, really important, 1536. And then metric cosine, and then we are going to create the index. It's going to take a minute or two for this to initialize, so wait for a minute or two. And after a few minutes, we see a green dot here. Now, this is really important. Just either copy this name or remember it, and go back to my app and say, enter your Pinecone index name right here, and we are done. Now, you can paste in any text here. For example, I like color yellow. And we're going to say embed to database, and this is going to actually now embed here. We're going to see vector is going to be 1. Yes, now we know that it's embedded. And then we will go back and say, what is my favorite color? And then I say get answer. We're going to wait for a few minutes, for a few moments. Your favorite color is yellow. You see it works. Next, I will explain how all of this works, how you can make it yourself, and how you can turn this into either a business or a startup, or how you can make a version of this for yourself. Let's start with vector embeddings. Let's say we have a sentence, my favorite color is yellow. We are going to turn this into a vector. So vector is basically represented as an array of numbers. And as you can see, we have some number here, some number here, number here. And I told you that we are going to use vectors of dimensions 1536, if I remember. And so each of these embeddings is going to have that many numbers in this vector. And what these numbers mean is this is a semantic meaning of this sentence or of these words or whatever. So the numbers that we get here, basically, if you read them, if you know how to read them, you can read the semantic meaning that my favorite color is yellow. So for example, if you read these numbers, you're gonna get the semantic meaning that they represent a word cat. Or, these numbers will, for example, represent I have a dog sentence. Now what's important is that you can embed any length of text of characters. So you can embed either one letter or you can embed the whole book. But each embedding is going to have the same length, 1536. So that means if you are embedding the whole book, you're going to lose the details. So it can just figure out the general semantic meaning of the whole book, the general message of the book, but it cannot embed the exact meaning of that sentence at that exact page, what that sentence says. That information is going to be lost. Okay, so how do we use this information to answer questions? Let's say we have two embeddings as an example. My favorite color is yellow and I have a dog. You can notice that their embeddings are actually vectors. They are coordinates they can be coordinates in a coordinate system. So for example, this can be X coordinate, Y coordinate, Z coordinate, and there are 1500 coordinates here. But this is basically a vector, and this is a vector. Now, what you do is you take the question, what is your favorite color? And you turn that question into an embedding the same way, the same engine, same everything. And now you're going to get a vector for the question. As I said, these vectors represent the semantic meaning. So the closer this vector, this point in coordinate system is to this point, the more similar the semantic meaning. So basically, you just perform cosine similarity between all of these vectors and the question vector. And then you find the closest vectors in the coordinate system. Those will be with the closest meaning. If you did not understand this, you can watch this again, but I think I explained it as well as I can. Also, at any point of this video, feel free to go to ChatGPT and ask these questions that you don't understand. ChatGPT is going to give you a very good explanation. So the way we will do this is, let's say we have this psychology Wikipedia page. First, I'm going to divide this page by 1,000 characters in chunks, in parts of 1,000 characters each. It doesn't matter if we cut in the middle of the word, it doesn't matter. Then we are going to encode all of those chunks. So this 1,000 character chunk is going to get encoded into a single vector. And we're going to put all of those vectors, all of those chunks into the database. Then after we encode the question as well, like for example, personality traits, it's going to find the most similar chunks with the most similar semantic meaning that probably describe the personality traits, and it's gonna give us back those chunks. Then I will explain what happens after that. I do understand that this may sound a bit complicated, but bear with me. So basically, to repeat again, we divide text into 1,000 character chunks, and then we embed those chunks into the database, and we also embed the question, and then we do cosine similarity to find the closest vectors, the closest embeddings. Those will be the closest in semantic meaning as well. So for example, if the question is about 5 personality traits, the chunk of code that describes the 5 personality traits would have the most similar semantic meaning, therefore would be the closest in the vector space. So if you go ahead to my website and click show instructions, at the bottom you're gonna see two more parameters that you can play with if you want, but you don't need to. So chunk size 1,000, so we will be splitting your text into 1,000 characters. You don't need to touch this unless you know like exactly why. And then you're gonna see top K, so if it's 3, we will retrieve the 3 most relevant chunks of text to your question. So we're not gonna just find the chunk of 1,000 most relevant characters, we're gonna find 3 of them and order them by relevancy. So the first one retrieved is the most relevant chunk of text for your question. But as I said, you don't need to touch this unless you know like why exactly we are touching it. So after we get those 3 chunks of text, and they could look something like this. You see, this is like one chunk of text, although this is not 1,000 characters, but just for demonstration. This is second one, this is third one, for example. Then those will be stored into the variable, for example, in my case, relevant document text. And then we're gonna also have a question in another variable question. And then we will just pass this to ChatGPT, or not to the website ChatGPT, but to ChatGPT API. We're gonna say this is the prompt, relevant documents column, and then I'm gonna say the variable relevant document that's just gonna be replaced with actual text of relevant documents, and then user question column, and then this variable will be replaced with a question, and then the answer, and this is the prompt we send to GPT API, and it's gonna return us the answer. And then we can just display that answer onto our website. So everything I explained in this video, I will also explain in these instructions, so you can read them if you want. Now let's take a look at the code and how I programmed all of this. So it's gonna be in the description below, github.com/vuk/talk2pdf. And everything is basically, so license is MIT, meaning you can use this however you want. You can sell, distribute, copy, paste, it doesn't matter, I don't care. So we're gonna go to main.py where all of the code is. And then, okay, so first we're gonna use Streamlit. Streamlit is basically a website builder. Streamlit is to be able to build all of these components and the website. Now, I do expect you to have some kind of knowledge. For example, you know how to install pip install requirements txt. If you don't know, you should ask ChatGPT how to install requirements txt, and either how to enable virtual environments if you want, or how to run a GitHub repository. You need to know that. Or you can ask ChatGPT and watch a YouTube tutorial, how to run a Python GitHub repository on my PC. Then we have all of these other modules like PyPDF2 for reading PDF files, Pinecone for putting everything into the... One thing I forgot to mention is that we are storing these vectors into this Pinecone database. So this website, pinecone.io, has these indexes, and you can, for example, I stored these vectors into this database. There is one vector right now because our statement, I like color yellow, that has way less than 1,000 characters, so it's just gonna be stored into one vector. So that's why I'm gonna install Pinecone, I'm gonna install OpenAI to convert it to embeddings and to use GPT model. I'm also gonna use Langchain.embeddings.openai, import OpenAI. So I installed Langchain. Now you can just do this with OpenAI, but I also was trying to use Langchain. It's the same thing, just using OpenAI embeddings. And then .env if you want your .env variables, your environment variables here. So I'm gonna start by initializing these global variables, OpenAI API key, Pinecone API key, etc., top K and chunk size. And then this is just instructions that I have. So basically these function instructions, we're going to, first I'm going to explain this st.markdown. This is basically so you are, when you press show instructions, when you say st dot, this is some element on our website, because st or Streamlit is for building the website. So I basically wrote all of these instructions, all of this markdown here. This is all of the markdown. And then I'm also gonna enable you to set top K and chunk size parameter in here. So for that, I need to say top K is equal to st.number input, and then these parameters. The main thing here is that I also need to define global top K and global chunk size, so I can actually control these global variables and not declare new local variables here if I don't say global. Now this next one is just to toggle instructions button. So it's just gonna activate our instructions when I toggle the button. It's gonna call this instructions function. And now let's actually go just a little bit down, and we will now continue from main function. So I'm gonna define text's empty array. I'm gonna define all of these global variables that I already defined as global variables, OpenAI API key, etc. And then we are going to say OpenAI API key is st.text input, enter your OpenAI API key. So all of these fields, st.text input, those will be here at the top. Let me hide instructions. So those will be these fields at the top. Then we have toggle instructions button below. As you can see, it's below. And then we have a title, st.title, answer questions from text. It's this title right here. Then we have the text area to paste text. Then we have file uploader and st.information. So I made this also to be able for you to upload PDF files, but it turned out to be very slow. You actually want to just go to and convert PDF to TXT on like some other website and then paste the text here. It's a lot faster. And after that, we have this button embed to database. So this is how we define this button. So I'm going to say if st.button embed to database. This is what defines, what puts the button here. Just this, there's nothing else to put the button there. So we're gonna start with extracted text is equal to this empty string. And then we're first gonna check if there are some uploaded PDF files. If there are, we're gonna just use PDF reader to that uploaded file. And then we're gonna extract. You need to go page by page here and then just append extracted text from the page to this text. And now this extracted text, we are going to add this pasted text to it. So this extracted text will contain all of the text from the PDF files and our pasted text that user pasted. After that, we are going to split that whole text into chunks of 1,000 characters. Then we are going to convert it to embeddings. And then we are going to push it to the Pinecone database. As a first step, we are just going to split the text into 1,000 character chunks. So we're going to create this text array, and we are going to make an array that's going to be extracted text, and then we're going to go from I, well, actually, let's start from here. For I in range 0 to length of extracted text, going by chunk size. So it's going to go 0 to the length of the text by characters, length of characters, but by 1,000 by chunk size. And okay, so we're gonna take from I to I plus chunk size. In the beginning, I will be 0, so it will go from 0 to 1,000. It's just going to make that those 1,000 characters one element of this array. So basically, this is gonna split the text into 1,000 character elements, chunks. And then we are going to send it to this function upload data to Pinecone, and then that array of chunk text. So now we can take a look at this function, define upload data to Pinecone, and then this is an array of chunks. So first we're going to initialize Pinecone object with the API key in the environment. Then we are going to say embeddings is equal to OpenAI embeddings, and we're going to pass in the API key. And then we are going to say data to upload. Now we need to convert each of these text chunks into a tuple that's ID and vector embedding. So ID vector tuple. Now besides the ID and the vector, we are also going to have metadata. I don't know why I didn't write it here, but we have ID vector metadata. So the first, this is the data to upload. That's going to be an array of all of these tuples. So the first tuple is going to be relevant to the first chunk. So let's say we go chunk by chunk here. So what we do is for I, comma text in enumerate texts. So we have index of the text and the text itself. We are going to first have the first element of the tuple is going to be string I. So basically the index, we're just going to convert it to the string. The second element is going to be, we are going to convert that text into the vector embedding. So this is going to be a vector embedding as the second element. And the third element is going to be metadata. I need to fix this and add comma metadata here. So the metadata is going to be an object with key text and value text. So this is, so when we find the closest vector by semantic meaning to the question, we have the text, the corresponding text, and we can just read the corresponding text to that vector. So I added a better comment here. It says ID vector metadata. And after that, we are going to initialize our index that we created. As I explained in the beginning of the video, we're going to say index is equal to pinecone.index and then pinecone index name. Now we have this index object. And first, we're going to delete all true. So we're going to delete all of the vectors inside of that index first. And then we're going to index.upsert data to upload. So data to upload, as I said, is a list of these tuples. So and each tuple is for a specific chunk of text. So ID, vector, and then metadata. So if we go down and then we're going to continue with our code. So we got only this part left. So we have st.header ask a question. You can see here ask a question header. And then we are going to define a new variable, relevant documents, and that's equal to this empty string. And then we're going to say user question is equal to st.text input, enter your question. That's going to be this text input. After that, we have a button that says get answer. So we're going to define that button by saying if st.button and then get answer. We are going to retrieve answers from Pinecone based on the user's question. So we're going to say relevant documents is equal to answer question and then user question. We're going to just pass in the user question. So let's take a look at this answer question function. It's right here, define answer question. It receives question as the parameter, the text of the question. So first we're going to define embeddings again. And then we're going to say OpenAI embeddings and then pass in OpenAI key. And then we are going to say question embedding is equal to embedding.embed query and then question. So this will return a vector embedding and it's going to be assigned to this embedding question. We're going to initialize Pinecone again. And then we are going to say index is equal to pinecone.index. We're going to save the index variable as well. Now I just added these print statements, although I'm going to remove this. And then I also added this try catch, but for me it worked without errors, so I commented try catch block. So basically what I did here is say result is equal to index.query. And then the queries is going to be a question embedding. So this is, we're just going to pass in, we need to pass in the array of embeddings, but we only have one embedding. So we're going to say query is array of and then question embedding. Top K is top K. I define top K as the top most relevant, the number of most relevant chunks of text we retrieve. In our case, it's 3, so we will retrieve 3 most relevant chunks of text. And we're going to say include metadata is equal to true, so it also returns our metadata. If you remember, it was the text, the text of the chunk. And down below, we are going to get these matches. So matches basically contain the data for the chunk or the list of all of the data for all of the chunks we are retrieving. So it's going to contain the tuple of ID, vector embedding, and metadata. And for all of the chunks, 3 chunks that we retrieved in this case. And then we just actually need to get the text, the metadata. Now we have all of those relevant chunks. Now we just need the text that we are gonna use in our answer. So we're gonna extract the 3 texts from those 3 chunks with this line of code. And then we're just gonna join them into relevant documents text, and we're gonna join them and put in this double new line in between. So it's gonna be chunk of text, new line, chunk of text, new line, chunk of text. And now we will send this to ChatGPT for it to create the answer. So the chat prompt is gonna be relevant documents, and then we're gonna say a new line and then paste in these relevant documents text. We're gonna say new line, user question. We're gonna say question and then answer. And then we are actually gonna use different libraries. So we're not gonna use Langchain, where it's used for OpenAI embeddings. We will use just OpenAI. You can actually use OpenAI for both or Langchain for both, but I just wanna show in each case how these 2 different libraries work. So if you are using OpenAI library, then you say OpenAI.API key is equal to OpenAI API key. And then you're gonna say response is equal to OpenAI.chatCompletion.create. We're gonna use model 3.5 turbo, and we're gonna pass in this object. So it's gonna be messages is equal to role system content. You are a helpful assistant. For example, you can say whatever you want, but make it this is a good system message. And then role user content, and then chat prompt that we created here. And then it's gonna give us the answer into this response. So we're gonna say response.choices 0 message content. We will assign that to the answer. This will be our answer that we will show to the user, and we're just gonna return this answer. Now, when we call that function right here, answer question, user question, we are going to get the ready answer, and we will assign it to this variable relevant documents. Now, I don't know why I called it relevant documents. Maybe I was doing something else, but this variable should be called answer. And then we're just gonna st.write our answer. And then as you can see down below, it's gonna write the answer here as it executes. Based on the relevant document, your favorite color is yellow. And at the end of the code, this is just the proper way to do Python code. So I say if name is equal to main, then it's gonna call main. This is just the standard way of executing Python code. And now if you want to turn this into a startup kind of business, depending on what you want to do, I will give you some instructions of how to do this. So this is gonna be a bit more complex, and you do need to know some software engineering for this. So I recommend React for front-end, or it doesn't matter, Svelte, React, any kind of JavaScript framework. And then you're gonna use Firebase for backend. Firebase is basically backend as service. So you have a database, you have hosting, you have authentication, you have everything here. And you will use Stripe for payments, payments infrastructure. Now, important notice is that you're gonna put all of this kind of backend code onto the backend, not into the client, like text embedding, answer generating, that's gonna go to the backend. So you're gonna go to Firebase and use these functions, and you're gonna create these cloud functions for each of these functionalities. So you're gonna have putting text into the Pinecone database and answering the question from the Pinecone database. You need those 2 cloud functions. Now these Firebase cloud functions are the exact same thing as Google Cloud functions. They are the same thing. So I wrote 2 kind of Google Cloud functions for you right here. The code will be below, but you're gonna need to adjust it and change it. This is just like a rough function code, and it works for me, but it's probably gonna need to be adjusted for you. So this cloud function receives text and does all the processing and puts it into the Pinecone database. As you can see, I included all of these imports. We're gonna actually initialize a course that is for defining which addresses can access our function. So if I say this asterisk, that means every website can access, every address can access our function. we're gonna allow get and post, although I think you just need post, you don't need get, for example. Then I'm gonna say Pinecone API key. You will not put these variables here. You will put them into the variables here. I have my API keys and stuff here in the variables. I think you can either press edit, or you can, when you are creating the function, you can add these variables here. And you're not gonna put it here like into the code. Now these are Python functions. You can use Node.js functions as well. The code is basically the same, although it's a bit different because we are receiving data a bit differently in these kind of requests. So we need to like change the code a little bit, but you have it in the description below. And the same thing goes for the answer the question function. This will receive the question and it will do all of the processing, retrieving relevant chunks of text, calling OpenAI GPT API and answering the question and returning the question. The same logic applies here. So you will have to change all of these functions, make them better or improve them or fix bugs or apply them to your specific case. Thank you for watching. Check out the course below if you want to learn how to build all of this on your own without waiting for YouTubers to make videos about it. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner, if you are a Google engineer, I will teach you, it doesn't matter. So schedule the call below and thank you for watching and see you in the next video.